I lie on my back, staring at the ceiling, tracing the new cracks that seem to have formed overnight like the cracks in my marriage. It's strange how things change. Alice and I were once the couple everyone admired. At parties, I'd catch people glancing at us, eyes full of admiration, maybe even a bit of envy. But that was before. Before the distance crept in, before the late-night messages she thought she could hide, and the phone calls that ended as soon as I entered the room. I'm no fool. I recognize the signs. Alice thinks she's clever, but she's not as smart as she believes. The soft laugh she thought I couldn't hear, the mysterious work dinners, and her unexplained absences. I've been watching, piecing it all together. The woman I married isn't the same anymore. The passion we once had has cooled into something resembling polite cohabitation. I can't even remember the last time we made love without it feeling like a chore. On paper, my life is perfect. I'm in my mid-30s, financially successful, and I've always been faithful. I built my career from the ground up, married the woman I loved, and carved out a life that others would kill for. But lately, something inside me has shifted. The growing suspicion that something is terribly wrong feeds a darkness I never knew was there. I used to believe in justice. Now, I understand the allure of revenge. Alice was my everything, and now it feels like she's slipping away. Our conversations have become brief, transactional. We still put on a good show in front of friends, laughing, smiling, playing the part of the perfect couple. But behind closed doors, it's a different story. The silence is suffocating. The lies are becoming too obvious to ignore. Tonight, after Alice falls asleep, I sneak into her office. My pulse quickens as I sift through her laptop, searching for anything to confirm my fears. It doesn't take long. There it is, a confirmation email for a 6-week luxury cruise that I knew nothing about. My breath catches in my throat. My heart pounds as I scroll through the details. Alice had mentioned a work trip, but not this. Never this. The cruise leaves in 2 weeks, and I'm not on the guest list, but someone else is. The email doesn't mention a name, but I just know. The confirmation stares back at me from the screen, mocking me. The cracks in our marriage, the ones I tried to ignore, have split wide open. I knew something was wrong, but this is betrayal. And it's not something I can forgive. I wait until breakfast to bring it up. Alice sits across from me, scrolling through her phone, pretending to be engrossed in whatever lie she's telling herself this time. I sip my coffee, watching her, feeling the anger simmer just beneath the surface. I could confront her right now, expose everything, but that's not enough. I need her to confess, to squirm under the weight of her deceit. "Were you excited about your trip?" I ask casually, keeping my voice light. She doesn't look up from her phone. "Mem? Oh yeah, it's just a work thing. Nothing special." The lie rolls off her tongue so easily, it makes me sick. I force a smile. "I wish I could come with you. 6 weeks is a long time to be apart." Finally, she looks up, her smile thin and forced. "I know, but it's really just business. You'd be bored out of your mind." Business. 6 weeks of business in the Caribbean, lounging on a sun-drenched deck, sipping cocktails with her lover. I clench my jaw, nodding as if I believe her. I've never hated anyone more than I hate her right now, but I can't show it. Not yet. "That's true," I say, trying to sound convincing. "I guess I'll just have to survive without you." Her smile widens, but it doesn't reach her eyes. "You'll manage." She's already checked out of our marriage. It's clear in the way she dismisses me, in the way her eyes flicker with irritation when I speak. She's thinking about him, imagining their time together. The images flood my mind, and I feel the familiar sting of betrayal, but I keep my face neutral, even as my insides twist with rage. That night, after she's asleep, I make my move. Her phone is on the nightstand, the screen casting a soft glow in the dark room. I slide out of bed carefully, making sure not to wake her. I know her password, her birth date. She's predictable in that way. The phone unlocks, and I go straight to the messages. There they are. The text I knew existed. "Can't wait for our trip," one reads. Another, more explicit, makes my stomach churn. I scroll through, absorbing every detail, committing it all to memory. My hands shake not from fear, but from the cold, calculated fury that's been growing inside me. I screenshot everything, sending it to myself for safekeeping. This is the proof I need. Not that I need convincing. No, I need it to destroy her when the time comes. I'm methodical, deleting the evidence that I've been in her phone, then placing it back on the nightstand exactly where it was. As I watch her sleep, I think about how easy it would be to end it right now. But that would be too simple, too clean. She deserves to suffer, to feel the same pain she's inflicted on me. And so, I wait. The next morning, I tell her I'll be busy at work for the next few days, that I might have to stay late. She barely reacts, just nods and mutters something about not waiting up for me. She's already planning her escape with him, but she has no idea I'm about to shatter everything. I make the first of many phone calls. The private investigator I hire is discreet and professional. I don't give him many details, just the basics: her name, the lover's name, the date of the cruise. He asks a few questions, but I keep my answers short. I don't want to talk about it. I just want the information. By the end of the day, he promises me results. While I wait, I start planning. I'm not impulsive. I'm meticulous. Every detail matters. I spend hours researching the cruise line, the ship, its layout. I think about where I can confront them, where I can make it look like an accident. The possibilities are endless, but I want it to be perfect. A few days later, the investigator calls. His voice is calm, matter-of-fact. He confirms everything I already knew. She's meeting him. They've been together for months, and this cruise is their way of sealing the deal. He's even got photos, videos, everything I need to ruin them. I thank him and hang up, staring at the evidence on my computer screen. I should feel something: anger, sadness, anything. But all I feel is cold, hard resolve. This is happening. There's no turning back now. Alice comes home that evening, acting as if everything is normal. She kisses me on the cheek, asks about my day. I tell her work was fine, that I'm tired. She doesn't push, doesn't notice the tension in my voice. She's too wrapped up in her fantasy, too eager to leave me behind. As she showers, I sit on the bed, the photos and videos still on my screen. I imagine what it will be like when I confront them, when I show them the evidence, when I watch their smug smiles fade. But that's not enough. I want more than just to hurt them. I want to destroy them. Over the next few days, I finalize my plan. I book a cabin on the same cruise using a different name, paying in cash. I arrange for a flight to the port city, making sure there's no trail. I keep everything hidden, erasing any evidence that could link me to what's coming. Alice is oblivious. She spends her days shopping, preparing for the trip, humming to herself as she packs. I watch her, a silent observer, waiting for the right moment to strike. The night before she leaves, I take her to bed. It's been a while since we've been together like this, and I make sure it's a night she won't forget. She's surprised by my intensity, my need. She responds eagerly, almost desperately, as if this is what she's been waiting for. The sex is raw, primal, filled with an edge that's been missing for months. I can see the confusion in her eyes, but she doesn't question it. She just enjoys it, thinking it's some last-ditch effort to reconnect. But for me, it's something else. It's a final goodbye, a way to take back control. As she rides beneath me, moaning my name, I feel nothing but hollow satisfaction. This is just another part of the plan, another step toward the endgame. The next morning, she leaves early. I kiss her goodbye, telling her to have a safe trip. She smiles, thanks me, and walks out the door without a second thought. I watch her go, my heart pounding with anticipation. She has no idea what's waiting for her. As soon as she's gone, I pack my own bag. I'm calm, methodical, going over every detail in my mind. There's no room for error. I check my phone, making sure I have everything I need, the photos, the videos, the tickets, the fake ID. It's all there, ready to go. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for what's to come. This isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming my life, my dignity. Alice thinks she's won, that she's outsmarted me. But she has no idea I'm 2 steps ahead, that I've been planning this for weeks. When I arrive at the airport, I blend in with the crowd, just another traveler on a business trip. I board the plane, settle into my seat, and close my eyes, running through the plan one last time. I can see it all so clearly how it will unfold, the looks on their faces when they realize they're trapped. I smile to myself, feeling a sense of calm wash over me. This is it. There's no turning back now. The flight is uneventful, giving me time to think, to prepare. I arrive at the port city and check into a small hotel under my alias. The cruise ship looms in the distance, a floating palace of decadence and desire. I can see the passengers boarding, laughing, chatting, completely unaware of the storm that's about to hit. I wait until the last possible moment to board, keeping a low profile. My cabin is on the opposite end of the ship from Alice, just as I planned. I'll make my move when the time is right, when they least expect it. Until then, I'll watch, I'll wait, and I'll savor every second of their downfall. The ship pulls away from the dock, and I step onto the balcony of my cabin, watching the coastline fade into the distance. The air is warm, the sun casting a golden glow across the water as it sets on the horizon. It should be peaceful, but all I feel is the anticipation, the thrill of what's to come. Alice and her lover are somewhere on this ship, basking in their stolen moments. They think they're safe, that they've escaped the mundane reality of their lives. But they're wrong. I'm here, and I'm ready. The game has just begun, and I won't stop until it's over. On the first day at sea, I keep to myself, observing, planning. The ship is massive, with endless corridors and hidden corners where I can execute my plan. I'm careful to avoid areas where Alice might see me. The thought of her relaxing, laughing with him, unaware that I'm here, only strengthens my resolve. I've intercepted and altered some of their documents, making sure her lover boards under a false identity. It was easier than I thought, a simple hack that raises no suspicion. Now I just need to play my part, wait for the perfect moment. At breakfast, I catch a glimpse of them in the distance. They're seated on the deck, sipping mimosas, looking so damn comfortable, so carefree. It makes my blood boil. I turn away quickly, afraid I might lose my composure. I need to stay in control. I can't afford any mistakes. I grab a coffee from the bar and head back to my cabin, where I've set up a temporary command center. I pull out my laptop and open the files the private investigator sent me, every photo, every video, every message. It's all here, record of their betrayal. I've studied them endlessly, memorized every detail, but I review them again just to remind myself why I'm doing this. Later, I walk the length of the ship, exploring every level, mapping it out in my mind. I locate the perfect spot, a secluded part of the lower deck where the noise of the engine drowns out most sounds. It's isolated, rarely visited by passengers. It's here that I'll confront them, where I'll make my move. The possibilities are endless, but I want it to be precise, calculated. By the time evening rolls around, I'm back in my cabin, refining the next steps of my plan. I need to start sowing seeds of doubt between them, make them paranoid, unsure of each other. That's how I'll break them down, piece by piece. I send an anonymous text to Alice's lover, using the burner phone I bought just for this purpose. I know what you're up to. Watch your back, it's simple, but it should be enough to rattle him, to get him looking over his shoulder. The next morning I see them again. But this time something's changed. He's tense, glancing around nervously while Alice looks confused, trying to reassure him. I keep my distance, but I can see the doubt starting to take root. Good, this is just the beginning. That afternoon I send another message, this time to Alice. He's not who you think he is. Ask him about his real name. I imagine her reaction, the sudden fear, the doubt creeping in. Her lover's fake identity was too easy to set up, and I know it'll raise questions. She'll start to wonder who he really is, and that's when I'll strike. Over the next few days, I stay out of sight, continuing to plan evidence. I leave a note in their cabin, slipped under the door when I'm sure they're not around. He's hiding something. Meet me tonight on the lower deck if you want the truth. It's unsigned, cryptic just enough to push them closer to the edge. That night, I wait on the lower deck, hidden in the shadows. I can hear the distant hum of the ship's engines, the faint sound of the ocean lapping against the hull. My heart races as I see them approaching. Alice is holding onto his arm, looking worried. He's on edge, scanning the area, already paranoid from the messages. They stop a few feet from where I'm hiding, and I hear her voice tremble. What is this really about? Who sent that note? He shushes her, trying to calm her down. I don't know, babe. It's probably some prank. Let's just go back. But she doesn't move. No, I want to know what's going on. Who are you really? What aren't you telling me? I can feel the tension building between them, a knot of fear and confusion tightening. He hesitates, and that's when I step out of the shadows. Maybe I can help with that, I say, my voice low controlled. Alice gasps, her hand flying to her mouth. Oh my God, what are you doing here? Her lover steps forward, shielding her with his body, his face twisted with anger. Who the hell are you? What do you want? I ignore him, my focus entirely on Alice. You didn't think I'd find out, did you? You didn't think I'd follow you here. She stumbles back, shaking her head. N-O. This can't be happening. How did you? Does it matter? I cut her off, my eyes cold as they lock onto hers. I know everything, Alice, every lie, every secret, and now it's time to pay. Her lover steps toward me, puffing out his chest in a weak attempt to intimidate me. Listen, I don't know what your problem is, but you need to back off. I smirk, shaking my head. You really have no idea who you're dealing with, do you? He looks confused, glancing between Alice and me, but then Alice blurts out, tell me your real name. He freezes, the bravado starting to crumble. What are you talking about? Tell her, I say, enjoying the way his confidence begins to slip. Tell her who you really are. Or should I? He stares at me for a moment, panic flickering in his eyes. Then he grabs Alice's arm, trying to pull her away. Come on, let's get out of here. But she pulls back, her voice shaking. No, I want answers. Who are you really? He hesitates, his confidence slipping further, and that's when I strike. He's been lying to you, Alice. He's not who you think he is. He's using you just like he's used others before. She looks between us, her face pale. Is that true? Have you been lying to me? He opens his mouth to protest, but I don't give him the chance. Tell her about the others. The woman in Miami, the one in New York. Should I go on? Her eyes widen in horror, and I see her start to crumble. She turns to him, her voice a whisper. Is that true? He stammers, no, of course not. He's lying. He's just trying to mess with your head. I step closer, my voice cold. You think I didn't do my homework? You think I wouldn't find out who you really are? I reach into my pocket, pulling out the photos the investigator sent me. I hold them up for Alice to see. This is who he really is, a con man, a liar. Alice takes the photos with trembling hands, her eyes darting across the images. Her face crumples as the truth sinks in. N-O.O.N-O. This can't be true. Her lover lunged at me, trying to grab the photos, but I stepped back just in time, shoving him away. You really thought you could get away with this? You thought I'd just let you take her? He snarls, you're insane. She's mine now. The words hit me like a punch, but I keep my cool. She was mine first. But you don't deserve her. Alice looks up at me, tears streaming down her face. What are you going to do? I stare at her, feeling the weight of everything that's happened pressing down on me, the betrayal, the lies, the anger. It all leads to this moment. I reach into my jacket, pulling out a small envelope, and hand it to her. Here, open it. She hesitates, then tears it open, pulling out the folded paper inside. Her eyes scan the contents, and then she looks up at me, confusion etched on her face. What is this? I keep my voice calm, detached. That's your ticket home. You're getting off at the next port, alone. Her lover steps forward, sneering. You think you can just send her away? You don't have that kind of power. I smile, a cold, humorless smile. I think you'll find I do. He tries to grab the envelope from her, but I'm quicker, stepping between them. Touch her again, and I'll make sure you never see the light of day again. He glares at me, but something in my voice, in my eyes, makes him hesitate. He knows I'm not bluffing. Alice looks at me, her voice trembling. You can't just send me away. We can talk about this. We can fix this. But I shake my head. No, Alice, there's nothing left to fix. You made your choice when you got on this ship. She opens her mouth to protest, but I cut her off. I'm giving you a way out. Take it, because if you stay, things will only get worse. Her lover scoffs. You think she's going to leave with you just because you say so? I turn to him, my eyes narrowing. She doesn't have a choice. Neither of you do. The silence stretches between us, thick with tension. Alice looks between us, torn, her mind racing. Finally, she nods, defeated. Okay, I'll go. Her lover's face contorts with rage. You're just going to let him control you like that. You're just going to leave. But she shakes her head, stepping back. I don't have a choice. I hand her the envelope, my voice softening. Take it, Alice, it's the only way. She grabs it, holding it to her chest like a lifeline. She turns to me one last time, her eyes pleading. What are you going to do to him?
I look at him, then back at her. That's not your concern anymore. Just go.
She hesitates, then nods, turning away and heading back toward the main deck. Her lover starts after her, but I grab his arm, pulling him back. She's not your problem anymore. He glares at me, but I can see the fear creeping into his eyes. You can't do this. I lean in close, my voice deadly quiet. Watch me. I let him go, shoving him back. He stumbles, but catches himself, his eyes darting around, looking for a way out. There isn't one. I watch as Alice disappears into the distance, the envelope clutched in her hands. Once she's out of sight, I turn back to him, my voice cold. Now it's just you and me. He swallows hard, taking a step back. You're insane. I take a step closer, forcing him toward the edge of the deck. No, I'm just a man who was pushed too far. He looks around, desperate, but there's no one else here. No one to save him. He's trapped, just like I planned. He tries to reason with me, his voice trembling. Listen, we can work something out. I'll leave her. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. But I shake my head, smiling grimly. You don't get it, do you? This isn't about you anymore. It's about what you took from me. He takes another step back, his eyes wide with fear. Please, please don't do this. But I'm already there, grabbing him by the collar, pulling him close. It's too late for that. Before he can react, I shove him hard, sending him over the edge. He doesn't even have time to scream before he's gone, swallowed by the darkness below. I stand there for a moment, staring at the spot where he disappeared, listening to the sound of the ocean, the hum of the ship's engines. It's over. It's finally over. I turn and walk away, heading back toward the main deck, my heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and exhaustion. But there's also a strange sense of peace, of finality. I did what I had to do, what I was pushed to do. When I reach my cabin, I find a bottle of whiskey. Pouring myself a glass, I sit on the bed, staring out at the endless expanse of water. The ship continues on its course, oblivious to what just happened to the lives that were just destroyed. I take a sip, savoring the burn as it slides down my throat. The tension that's been gripping me for so long starts to loosen, replaced by a numbness that I welcome. I did it. I won. But as I sit there, alone in the darkness, I can't help but wonder if I've really won it all. The next morning, the ship docks at the first port. Alice is already gone, having taken the first flight back home. I watch from the balcony as passengers disembark, going about their lives, completely unaware of the storm they narrowly avoided. I don't join them. Not yet. I need time to think, to figure out what comes next. I'm not the same man I was when I boarded this ship. I've become something darker, something I don't fully understand yet. I finish the last of the whiskey, then stand feeling the ship's gentle sway beneath my feet. I know I have to leave soon, but for now, I just need a moment to breathe, to process everything that's happened. As I stand there, staring out at the ocean, I realize that this is only the beginning. The darkness inside me isn't going away. It's a part of me now, and I'll have to learn to live with it. For now, I'm content to stand here, feeling the wind on my face and the salt air filling my lungs. The world is out there waiting, but I'm not ready to face it just yet. A few hours later, I finally leave the ship, blending into the crowd as I walk through the terminal. No one pays attention to me. I'm just another passenger, another face in the sea of people. The anonymity is comforting. It gives me space to think, to plan my next move. I find a quiet cafe near the port and sit down at an empty table, ordering a coffee. I stare into the steaming cup, trying to shake off the numbness that settled over me. Everything feels surreal, like I'm living in someone else's life. The weight of what I've done presses down on me, but I force myself to push it aside. I can't dwell on it now. I need to move forward to figure out how to reclaim my life. As I sit there sipping my coffee, I start to think about Alice. What is she doing right now? Is she relieved to be away from me? Or is she as lost as I am? Does she even know what happened to her lover? Would she care if she did? The questions swirl in my mind, but I shove them aside. Alice is out of my life now. She's gone, and I can't afford to think about her anymore. I pull out my phone and begin scrolling through the messages from the private investigator. Photos, videos, emails, it's all there. The evidence of her betrayal. I could still use it, still ruin her life with a few clicks. But as I stare at the screen, I feel no satisfaction. The anger that once drove me is fading, replaced by something else. Exhaustion. Emptiness. I toss the phone onto the table, rubbing my hands over my face. I need to leave this place. Start over somewhere new. But where? And what will I do when I get there? I think about the last 6 months, the slow unraveling of my marriage, the lies, the deceit. How did it come to this? How did I become the kind of person who would push someone over the edge of a ship without a second thought? The man I used to be, the man who believed in loyalty, in justice, feels like a distant memory. I sit there for what feels like hours, lost in my thoughts, until the waitress brings me another coffee. I thank her, though my voice feels hollow, like an echo of someone else. As I take a sip, I realize something. The darkness inside me isn't going away, but maybe I can learn to live with it. Maybe I don't have to let it control me. The thought gives me a small measure of hope, and for the first time since I boarded the ship, I feel like there's a way forward. It won't be easy. There will be days when the darkness is all I see, but I have to try. I can't keep running from it. I finish my coffee and leave the cafe, stepping out into the bright sunlight. The city is alive with noise and motion, people rushing to and fro, oblivious to the turmoil inside me. I feel like a ghost moving through the crowd unnoticed. As I walk, I find myself heading toward the airport. I don't have a destination in mind, but I know I need to leave. I need to put as much distance between myself and this place as possible. I'll book a flight to a city I've never been to before, somewhere far away, where no one knows me. When I board the plane, I settle into my seat and close my eyes, letting the steady hum of the engines lull me into a kind of uneasy calm. I can still see his face, the look of terror in his eyes as I pushed him over the edge. I can still hear Alice's voice begging for forgiveness, her tears mixing with the sound of the ocean. I wonder if I'll ever be free of those memories, or if they'll haunt me for the rest of my life. The plane takes off and I watch the city shrink beneath me, fading into the distance. I don't know what's waiting for me in this new place, but for the first time in a long time, I feel a flicker of something I thought I'd lost hope. Weeks pass, and I've settled into a new routine. I found a modest apartment in a city far from home, a place where no one knows my name. I got a job, nothing glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps me busy. On the surface, it looks like I've moved on, like I've left the past behind. But inside, I'm still haunted by what I've done. Every night I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The silence is unbearable, and the memories come rushing back, his scream as he fell, the cold satisfaction I felt as I watched him disappear. I tell myself he deserved it. That Alice deserved it. But deep down, I know that's just an excuse. I did what I did because I wanted to hurt them, because I wanted them to feel the same pain I felt. I try to forget, but the memories cling to me like a second skin. The guilt is always there, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for a quiet moment to strike. I've tried to drown it out with alcohol, with distractions, but nothing works. The guilt is a constant companion, one I can't shake. One night, after too many drinks, I find myself scrolling through old photos on my phone. Pictures of Alice and me from before, when we were still happy. We look so in love, so perfect. It's hard to believe that couple is the same as the one that ended up on that ship. As I stare at the photos, my vision blurs with tears I didn't know I had left. And I want to reach out, to rewind time and fix everything. But I know it's too late. Alice is gone, and nothing I do will bring her back. Nothing will undo what I've done. A knock at the door pulls me from my thoughts. I wipe my eyes, trying to pull myself together, and stumble toward the door. When I open it, I'm shocked to see Alice standing there. She looks broken, just as shattered as I feel. Her eyes are hollow, her face gaunt, like she hasn't slept in weeks. I freeze, unable to speak. My mind races, trying to make sense of what I'm seeing. "What are you doing here?" I finally manage to ask, my voice hoarse. She doesn't answer right away. She just stares at me, a mixture of desperation and sorrow in her eyes. "I had nowhere else to go," she says quietly. "I didn't know where else to turn." I should be angry. I should slam the door in her face. But I don't. Instead, all I feel is a deep, aching sadness. I step aside, letting her in. We sit in silence for a long time, neither of us knowing what to say. Finally, she speaks, her voice barely above a whisper. I tried to confess. I told them everything, but no one believed me. They think I'm crazy. "You're not crazy," I say, though part of me wonders if we both are. She looks at me, tears welling in her eyes. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make this right. I don't have an answer for her. I don't know how to make it right either. We're both trapped in the aftermath of what happened, both haunted by the choices we made. I reach out and take her hand, and she clings to me like I'm the only thing keeping her from drowning. "I'm sorry," she whispers, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." I close my eyes, the weight of her words crushing me. I want to tell her it's okay, that we can move past this. But I don't know if that's true. I don't know if we can ever truly move on from what we did to each other. We spend the night in a painful silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts. When morning comes, she's still there, curled up on the couch, looking so small and fragile. I watch her sleep, my mind churning with guilt and regret. I don't know what to do with her, with us. There's no easy way forward, no simple solution to the mess we've made. As the days stretch on, Alice and I fall into a strange, fragile routine. We don't talk about the past. Don't talk about what happened on that ship or the night I pushed her lover into the sea. It's as if we both silently agreed to ignore the darkness that brought us back together, to pretend that we're just two broken people trying to rebuild anything in the wake of what we've done. But there's no rebuilding. Not really. The apartment feels small, confining, filled with tension that neither of us acknowledges. Alice rarely leaves the couch. She sits there for hours, staring blankly out the window, her face a mask of exhaustion and regret. I go to work, come home, sit with her in silence. We don't speak of our future. We don't speak of anything at all. We're like two ghosts haunting the same space, caught in a limbo of our own making. But I can see it's taking a toll on her. The weight of what happened presses down on Alice in a way that's visible in every movement, every glance. She flinches at every loud noise, every unexpected sound. She avoids looking at me for too long, as if she's afraid of what she might see. I can feel the distance growing between us again, even though she's sitting just a few feet away. One night, I wake up to find her standing by the window, staring out at the city lights. The moonlight casts long shadows across her face, making her look even more fragile than she already does. I get up and walk over to her, but when I place my hand on her shoulder, she doesn't turn around. Her voice is barely a whisper. "I can't keep doing this," she says, her words trembling in the cool night air. "I can't keep living like this." I don't know what to say. I feel the same way, but I don't know how to fix it. There's no fixing this. We've done too much damage, caused too much pain. There's no going back to the way things were. Alice turns to me, her eyes hollow and filled with unshed tears. "I can't live with the guilt anymore. I can't live with the lies. It's killing me." She steps away from me, hugging her arms around herself as if she's trying to hold herself together. "I'm going to turn myself in." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I freeze, staring at her in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" I ask, my voice rising. "You can't do that." Alice shakes her head, a sad smile playing on her lips. "I have to. I tried to confess before, and no one believed me. But I have to keep trying. I can't live with what we did. I can't live like this." "You'll go to prison," I say, my voice tight with panic. "Or they'll lock you away. and you'll never get out. I know, she whispers, her voice breaking, but maybe that's what I deserve. Maybe that's the only way I can make things right. I can't believe what I'm hearing. I want to shake her, to make her see reason, but I can tell from the look in her eyes that she's made up her mind. There's no talking her out of this. Please, I beg, my voice cracking, don't do this. We can find another way. We can. There is no other way, she says firmly, cutting me off. This is the only way I can make it right. I stand there feeling utterly helpless as she gathers her things, preparing to leave. I want to stop her, to keep her here with me, but I know I can't. This is her choice, her way of finding peace, and I have to let her go. As she walks toward the door, I feel a crushing sense of loss, of despair. I thought I had already lost everything, but watching Alice walk out of my life, I realize that I'm about to lose even more. Alice pauses at the door, glancing back at me one last time, her face pale and gaunt, her voice barely audible. I loved you, I really did. I open my mouth to respond, but the words die in my throat. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to respond to a love that was buried under lies and betrayal. And then she's gone. I stand there in the silence of my empty apartment, the weight of everything crashing down on me. I should feel relieved that she's gone, that I no longer have to face the tension and the unspoken guilt between us. But all I feel is emptiness. A void so deep, I'm not sure I'll ever fill it. The days that follow are a blur of numbness and routine. I go to work, I come home, and I sit in the dark, staring at the walls that seem to close in on me more with each passing day. The quiet is suffocating. The absence of Alice is like a phantom presence that haunts every corner of the apartment. I thought that getting rid of Alice's lover would bring me peace, that it would give me some sense of closure, but it hasn't. If anything, it's made the guilt worse. Every time I close my eyes, I see his face, hear his scream as he disappeared into the water. I feel the cold satisfaction I felt in that moment, and I hate myself for it. I thought I was punishing them, but now I see that I was really punishing myself. Weeks turn into months, and I'm still trapped in the same cycle of self-destruction. The darkness that I thought I could control has taken root inside me, and it's consuming me piece by piece. I drink to numb the pain, but the alcohol only amplifies the emptiness inside me. I try to distract myself with work, with meaningless tasks, but nothing fills the void. I've thought about leaving again, about finding another new city, another fresh start. But I know now that no matter where I go, I can't outrun what I've done. The past is a shadow that clings to me, refusing to let go. One night, after too many drinks, I find myself scrolling through old messages and photos on my phone. I look at the images of Alice and me from the early days of our marriage, when we were happy, when we still believed in each other. I wonder what would have happened if we had made different choices. Would we still be together? Would we have built the life we always talked about? But it doesn't matter anymore. That life is gone. I destroyed it. Just as I'm about to toss my phone aside, there's a knock at the door. It startles me, pulling me out of the fog of regret I've been drowning in. I stumble to the door, expecting to see a neighbor or maybe even a delivery, but when I open it, I freeze. It's Alice. She looks even worse than the last time I saw her. Her face is pale and drawn, her eyes hollow and lifeless. She doesn't say anything, just stands there, staring at me with a look that sends a shiver down my spine. I couldn't do it, she whispers, her voice barely audible. I couldn't turn myself in. I don't know how to respond. Part of me is relieved, but another part of me is terrified. Alice stepping back into my life feels like the reopening of a wound that never really healed. She steps inside without asking, moving past me and into the apartment like she's still a part of this place. I follow her, unsure of what to say, unsure of how to feel. The silence between us is heavy, and for a long time neither of us speaks. Finally, Alice turns to me, her eyes filling with tears. I don't know how to live with what we did, she says, her voice shaking. I thought I could, but I can't. It's too much. I'm not strong enough. I want to tell her that I feel the same way, that I'm drowning too, but the words stick in my throat. I don't know how to comfort her when I can't even comfort myself. Alice sits down on the couch, the same spot she sat in for weeks before she left. She looks up at me, her eyes pleading. I need help, she whispers. I can't do this alone. I don't know if I can help her. I don't know if I can help myself. But as I sit down next to her, I realize that maybe we don't have to do it alone. Maybe the only way to survive this is together, even if we're both broken beyond repair. For the first time in months, I reach for her hand and she holds on tight. The days that follow are a strange blur. A mixture of routine and raw emotion as Alice and I navigate this new fragile dynamic. It's like we've become co-conspirators in our own undoing, trying to find a way to exist in the wreckage we've created. There's no love left between us, no trust. But there's something else, an unspoken understanding that we're the only ones who can truly comprehend the depth of the darkness we've both fallen into. Alice doesn't leave. She stays in the apartment, barely speaking, barely moving. I go to work, come home, and we sit in silence. At night, I listen to her breathing in the other room, wondering if either of us will ever find a way out of this suffocating existence.
We don't talk about what happened. It's as if the ship, the betrayal, and the murder are things we've shoved into a box, hidden deep in the recesses of our minds. But the weight of it all is there, hovering just beneath the surface, threatening to crush us if we let it.
One evening, after what feels like an eternity of silence, Alice speaks. Her voice is soft, almost a whisper, as if she's afraid that saying the words out loud will make them real. I don't think I can live with this forever, she says, staring down at her hands. I thought I could just bury it, but it's eating me alive. But I don't respond at first, unsure of what to say. Her words resonate with me, though. The guilt, the weight of what we did, it's suffocating. Every time I close my eyes, I see the moment I pushed him, hear the sound of the water swallowing him whole. The anger I felt back then has been replaced by something else: regret, fear, a gnawing sense of emptiness. Alice turns to look at me, her eyes filled with unshed tears. How do we live with this? I don't know, I admit, my voice rough from the tension that has been building for weeks. I thought revenge would make me feel better. I thought it would bring me peace, but it hasn't. Her shoulders slump, and she lets out a long, shuddering breath. I thought if I left, if I tried to turn myself in, it would somehow absolve me, but I couldn't do it. I was too scared. I sit beside her, staring at the floor, feeling the weight of her words. I wanted to hurt you, I confess, my voice quiet. I wanted to make you feel the same pain I felt, but all I did was destroy both of us. For a moment, neither of us speaks. The apartment feels smaller than ever, the air thick with the unspoken truth between us. We've both lost so much: our relationship, our sense of self, and what remains is nothing but the shell of who we used to be. I don't know how to fix this, Alice says after a long silence, her voice trembling. I don't even know if it can be fixed. I don't think it can, I reply, the honesty of the words stinging as they leave my mouth. What we did, there's no coming back from that. Her tears finally spill over and she covers her face with her hands, sobbing quietly. I feel the pull to comfort her, but I don't know how. I don't know if I can. How do you console someone when you're just as broken, just as lost? I'm sorry, she whispers through her tears. I'm so sorry. I am too, I say, the words catching in my throat. But sorry doesn't change anything. It doesn't bring him back. Alice wipes her eyes, sniffling. What do we do now? It's a question I've been asking myself for weeks. What do we do now? How do we move forward when there's nothing left to build on? I've thought about leaving, starting over in another city, but I know it worked. Wherever I go, the darkness follows, the memories follow. I don't know, I admit, but I don't think we can keep pretending like this. We're just surviving.
She nods, her expression weary. I don't want to just survive anymore.
The weight of her words hangs in the air, and I realize that I feel the same way. We've been trapped in this purgatory for so long, caught between the guilt of our past and the uncertainty of our future. It's no way to live. After a long silence, Alice looks at me, her eyes tired but filled with a flicker of something I haven't seen in a long time. Maybe we need to stop running from it, she says. Maybe we need to face it. Face what, I ask, my voice hoarse. What we did, what would that even look like? I don't know, she says, shaking her head, but I think we need to stop pretending that we can just bury it. We need to deal with it, somehow. Her words make sense, but the thought of facing what we've done terrifies me. I've spent so long trying to forget, trying to move on, that I can't imagine what it would look like to confront it head on. But maybe she's right. Maybe that's the only way we can move forward, if not together, then at least as individuals. Okay, I finally say, my voice steady. But how? Alice wipes her eyes, taking a deep breath. Maybe we need to talk to someone. A therapist. Someone who can help us process this. Help us figure out how to live with what we've done. I hadn't thought of therapy, hadn't considered the idea that talking to someone might actually help, but as she says it, I realize it might be the only way. We're drowning in our own guilt, and we need someone to throw us a lifeline.
I think you're right, I say after a moment. We can't keep doing this alone.
For the first time in what feels like forever, there's a glimmer of hope between us. It's faint, fragile, but it's there. The idea that maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to live with this, to live with ourselves, gives me something to hold on to. In the weeks that follow, Alice and I begin the slow, painful process of confronting the demons we've been running from for so long. We find a therapist, someone who specializes in trauma, and we begin to unravel the layers of guilt, anger, and regret that have consumed us. It's not easy. In fact, it's excruciating at times, forcing us to face the darkest parts of ourselves. But it's necessary. For the first time, we start to talk about what happened, about the lies, the betrayal, the violence. We talk about the moment on the ship, the choices we made, and the consequences that followed. There are days when the weight of it all feels too much to bear, when I want to retreat back into the numbness. But I keep going, we keep going. Slowly, painfully, we begin to heal. It's not a quick process, and it's not perfect. There are days when the guilt still feels overwhelming, when the memories still haunt us. But there are also moments of clarity, of understanding. We start to forgive ourselves little by little. Alice and I don't stay together. By the time the healing process begins, it's clear that whatever we had is gone, and there's no salvaging it. But we part on different terms, with an understanding that we both need to find our own paths forward. In the end, we realize that the only way to survive the wreckage of our past is to stop running from it, to face it, to accept that we can't undo what's been done, but we can learn to live with it. And in that acceptance, we begin to find a semblance of peace. Months later, I find myself standing by the ocean again, the sound of the waves lapping against the shore. It's not the same ocean that swallowed Alice's lover, but it reminds me of that night, the night everything changed, the night I became someone else. I think about who I was back then, the man driven by anger and betrayal, and I realize how far I've come. I'm not that man anymore, though the darkness still lingers. It will always be a part of me, but it no longer controls me. I close my eyes, breathing in the salty air, feeling the breeze against my skin. For the first time in a long time, I feel a sense of calm, a sense that maybe, just maybe, I can move forward.
The ocean stretches out before me, vast and endless, and for the first time, it feels like a horizon I'm ready to face.
The sound of the ocean has a strange calming effect on me, one that I haven't felt in what seems like forever. Standing here now, The horizon stretching endlessly in front of me, I feel lighter, as if the burden I've carried for so long has started to lift just a little. The memories are still there, of course, they'll always be there, but somehow they seem more distant, like shadows fading in the evening light. After Alice left for good, and after weeks of therapy, I began to rediscover myself in ways I didn't expect. It wasn't a sudden revelation, but more of a slow awakening, as if layers of guilt, rage, and regret had been peeled back, one at a time. It was a process that, in the beginning, seemed impossible, but standing here now, months later, I feel something I haven't allowed myself to feel in a long time: hope. I moved to a new town by the coast, a small, quiet place where no one knows my name, where I can start again without the ghosts of my past trailing behind me. The town isn't much, just a scattering of houses along a rocky shore, but it's enough for me. Here, the pace of life is slower, the people kinder, and though I keep mostly to myself, I've started to see glimpses of a life I could have again, something beyond the wreckage of what I've left behind. I've even found work as a carpenter, something I always enjoyed before my life spiraled out of control. But there's something satisfying about building, about using my hands to create something from nothing. It's as though every nail I drive, every piece of wood I sand smooth, is a small step toward rebuilding the man I used to be. It's simple, honest work, and I take comfort in the routine, in the steady rhythm of creation. But even in this new life, there are moments when the past creeps up on me, uninvited. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, heart pounding from dreams I can't quite remember. Other times, I find myself drifting back to that night on the ship, to the sound of the water, the rush of adrenaline as I pushed him over the edge. In those moments, the darkness I thought I'd left behind resurfaces, threatening to pull me back under. Yet, each time the memories come, I remind myself of the work I've done, of the progress I've made. I remind myself that I am not the same man who boarded that ship. The anger that once fueled me has dulled, replaced by a quiet determination to move forward, to be better. And though I know I can never truly escape what happened, I've come to accept that it doesn't have to define me. One evening, as the sun dips below the horizon, casting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I find myself walking along the shore. The sand is cool beneath my feet, the air salty and fresh. For a long time, I walk in silence, listening to the steady rhythm of the waves crashing against the rocks. After a while, I find a spot to sit, letting the ocean stretch out in front of me, endless and vast. I close my eyes, breathing in the sea air, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. It's been a long road getting to this place both physically and emotionally. And though I know I still have a lot of healing left to do, I'm starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, I can find some semblance of peace. As I sit there, I think back to the last time I saw Alice, the way her eyes pleaded for forgiveness, the way we sat in silence, both of us broken, lost in the mess we had created. I wonder where she is now, what kind of life she's building for herself. I hope, wherever she is, she's found some kind of peace too. We were both guilty, both complicit in what happened. But in the end, we were both just trying to survive. A therapist once told me that forgiveness isn't just about letting someone else off the hook, it's about setting yourself free. I didn't understand it at the time. I was too angry, too wrapped up in my own pain to see the truth in her words. But now, as I sit here watching the sun melt into the sea, I think I finally get it. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about accepting it, accepting the choices I made and learning to live with them. I'll never be the man I was before. That version of me is gone, lost in the wake of everything that's happened. But maybe, just maybe, I can be someone else, someone who understands the weight of his actions, who carries the darkness but isn't consumed by it, someone who can still build something good from the ruins. As the sky darkens and the stars begin to appear, I stand brushing the sand from my hands. The wind picks up, a cool breeze rustling through the grasses along the dunes. I turn back toward the small town, the lights twinkling in the distance, a reminder that life goes on, even after everything that's happened. I start walking, my steps slow but sure, leaving the beach behind. As I walk, I think about the future not with dread or uncertainty, but with a quiet sense of resolve. I know the road ahead won't be easy. There will be hard days, moments when the past feels too close, when the darkness threatens to pull me back under. But I also know that I have the strength to face it, to keep moving forward. For the first time in a long time, I feel ready to live again, not just survive, but truly live. And maybe that's enough. As I reach the edge of town, I pause, looking back one last time at the ocean, the place where it all began. The waves crash against the shore, relentless and eternal, just like the memories. But now, instead of fear or regret, I feel something else, a kind of acceptance. I turn and walk toward the lights of the town, leaving the past behind me step by step. The lights of the small town grow brighter as I approach, casting a soft glow that contrasts with the darkening sky. As I walk through the quiet streets, past closed shops and dimly lit homes, I feel a sense of calm that I hadn't expected. For the first time in what feels like forever, the weight on my chest doesn't feel so heavy. The past is still there, always will be, but it's no longer suffocating me. I reach my small apartment at the edge of town. The building is old, the kind of place where the floors creak and the walls hold stories of their own. But it's home. It's where I've started over, where I've begun to rebuild something resembling a life. I unlock the door and step inside, the familiar scent of wood and varnish greeting me. My tools are scattered across the small table in the corner, remnants of the latest carpentry project I've taken on. I find solace in the work. It's something tangible, something I can control. Each piece I craft, each project I finish, feels like a small step toward healing. I set my keys down and glance at the half-finished cabinet I've been working on. Tomorrow I'll get back to it. But tonight I just want to sit to let myself feel the quiet. I sink into the worn armchair by the window. the one I found in a second-hand shop when I first moved here. Outside, the stars shimmer against the dark sky, and the faint sound of the ocean can still be heard in the distance. It's peaceful, almost surreal, considering the chaos my life once was.
As I sit there, I think about everything that's happened, the choices I made, the people I hurt, and the person I became along the way. For a long time, I thought I was beyond redemption, that I'd crossed a line I could never come back from. But now I'm starting to believe that maybe redemption isn't about undoing the past. Maybe it's about learning to live with it, about choosing to be better moving forward.
The therapist I've been seeing once told me that the first step toward healing is acceptance. Acceptance of what happened, of who I was, and of the fact that I can't change any of it. At first I resisted that idea. I wanted to believe I could fix everything, that somehow I could make it all go away. But now, sitting here in the quiet of this small town, I understand what she meant. I can't erase the past, but I can accept it. I can live with it. I close my eyes, letting the calm wash over me. And for the first time in a long time, I don't feel the need to run. I don't feel the need to drown my thoughts in alcohol or distractions. I can just sit here in the stillness and be okay with where I am. After a while, I stand and head into the small kitchen. I pour myself a glass of water, leaning against the counter as I take slow sips. The routine of it, the simplicity, feels grounding. I glance at the clock on the wall. It's late, but I'm not tired. Not yet. There's too much to think about, too much to process. I pull out my phone, something I've avoided for most of the evening. There are a few messages from work, a reminder about a meeting I have tomorrow, but nothing urgent. I scroll through the contacts list, stopping when I see Alice's name. We haven't spoken since she left. She made it clear that she needed space, that we both did, and I agreed. But that doesn't stop the thoughts from creeping in, the what-ifs that linger in the back of my mind. What if things had been different? What if we had found a way to work through everything? Would we still be here, in this strange, broken dance of trying to rebuild what was lost? I hesitate, my thumb hovering over her name. Part of me wants to reach out, to check in, to see how she's doing. But another part of me knows that contacting her now would only bring back the pain, the guilt that we both tried so hard to leave behind. I can't drag us back into that darkness. Not now. Not when we've both come so far. Instead, I put the phone down and turn away, letting the thought of Alice drift into the background. She's part of my past now, a chapter that's closed, even if the scars remain. We each have our own paths to follow, and I know hers leads in a different direction than mine. I head back to the living room, turning on a small lamp by the armchair. The soft glow fills the room, casting long shadows on the walls. I sit back down, pulling a book from the shelf, a novel I've been meaning to finish for weeks. But as I open it, my mind drifts again, this time to the future. For so long, the future was something I couldn't bear to think about. It was a fog of uncertainty, filled with the ghosts of my past. But now, it feels different. There's still uncertainty, sure, but there's also possibility. I can picture myself staying here in this town, building a quiet life. Maybe one day I'll open my own carpentry shop. Maybe I'll make friends, start to feel like part of a community again. It's not a grand plan, but it's enough for me. I can live with simple. As the night wears on, I finally close the book and set it aside. The quiet has deepened, the town outside now completely still. I turn off the lamp, the room falling into darkness, but instead of feeling swallowed by it, I feel comforted. The darkness isn't as suffocating as it used to be. It's just part of the world, part of life. I've learned to accept it. I stand, stretching my legs, and make my way to the small bedroom at the back of the apartment. The bed is unmade, but I don't care. I slide in under the covers, letting out a long, slow breath. The familiar sounds of the town lull me towards sleep, the distant hum of the ocean, the creak of the old building settling into the night. As I lie there on the edge of sleep, I realize something that surprises me. I'm okay. For the first time in a long time, I feel okay. Not perfect, not free of the past, but okay. And maybe that's enough. As the weeks pass, the steady rhythm of my life begins to feel more natural, more real. It's a quiet existence, but it's one I've come to appreciate. There's a peace in the simplicity, working with my hands, keeping to myself, and watching the days melt into one another in this small town by the sea. Every morning I wake up to the sound of the waves crashing in the distance, and every evening I fall asleep to that same sound. It's become a sort of reassurance, a reminder that life keeps moving forward no matter how much we try to hold on to the past. I've gotten to know a few of the people here. There's an older man, Henry, who owns the hardware store where I buy my supplies. He's always up for a chat, and though I don't usually say much, he fills the space with stories about the town's history, the people who've come and gone over the years. His kindness reminds me that not everyone is as burdened by their past as I am, and I find comfort in that. There's also Martha, who runs the local diner. She always greets me with a smile when I come in for breakfast, asking if I'm settling in okay. I give her the same answer every time. I'm getting there, it's not a lie. But it's not the whole truth either. I'm still learning how to live with myself, with the weight of what I've done, but in this town, with these people, it feels a little easier. One evening, I'm at the diner, sitting at the counter with a cup of coffee, when Martha leans over and says, we've got a little community gathering coming up next week. Nothing fancy, just a barbecue down by the beach. You should come, meet some more folks. I hesitate for a moment, unsure if I'm ready for that kind of thing. I've been keeping to myself for so long, avoiding any real connections, that the idea of being around a group of people feels overwhelming. But I can see the genuine warmth in her eyes, the way she's trying to include me, and I realize that maybe it's time to stop isolating myself. I'll think about it, I say, offering her a small smile. She pats my hand. No pressure, but you're always welcome. As I walk home that evening, the air cool and crisp with the scent of the sea, I think about the barbecue. It's such a simple thing, just a gathering of neighbors, a chance to meet people and share a meal. But for me, it feels like a huge step, a decision that could mark the beginning of something new. I've been living in the shadows for so long, hiding from myself and from the world, that I'm not sure if I even know how to be part of a community anymore. But maybe that's exactly why I need to try. The next few days pass quickly, and as the weekend approaches, I find myself thinking more and more about the barbecue. Part of me is still resistant, still holding on to the belief that I don't deserve to be around people who don't know the truth about me. But another part of me, the part that's been growing stronger since I came here, knows that I can't keep hiding forever. The morning of the barbecue arrives, and I wake up early, my mind buzzing with uncertainty. I go about my usual routine, make coffee, take a walk along the beach, work on a small carpentry project I've been finishing up, but the thought of the gathering lingers in the back of my mind. By late afternoon, I've made up my mind. I'll go. Just for a little while. I'll show up, say hello, and if it gets to be too much, I can always leave. No one will think anything of it. When I arrive at the beach, the smell of grilled food fills the air, and the sound of laughter drifts toward me on the breeze. I hesitate for a moment, standing at the edge of the gathering, unsure if I really belong here, but then I see Martha waving me over, her face lit up with a welcoming smile. "There you are," she calls out, motioning for me to join the small group gathered around the fire pit. I force myself to take a deep breath and walk over. The group is small, maybe a dozen people, all of them chatting and laughing as the sun begins to set over the water. Martha introduces me to a few of her friends, and though the conversation feels awkward at first, I find myself relaxing as the evening wears on. People here are kind and assuming. No one asks too many questions about my past, and for that, I'm grateful. As the night deepens, I sit by the fire, watching the flames flicker and listening to the sound of the waves in the background. There's a sense of peace in the air, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, I can belong here. I can see myself coming back to these gatherings, slowly becoming part of this town, part of a life that feels real again. Henry, the hardware store owner, pulls up a chair beside me, offering me a beer. "Glad to see you here, son. It's good to get out and be with folks." I nod, accepting the drink. "Yeah, it's nice." He takes a sip of his own beer, then glances over at me. "You know, everyone's got their ghosts," he says, his voice low but steady. "Some of us are just better at hiding them, but that doesn't mean they're not there." I look at him, surprised by the comment. There's a knowing look in his eyes, a kind of quiet wisdom that makes me wonder if maybe he knows more than I've let on. But he doesn't push, doesn't pry. He just sits there, staring into the fire, as if he understands exactly what it means to carry the weight of your past. I take a deep breath, letting his words settle over me. "I guess you're right," I say, finally, feeling a strange sense of relief. It's the first time anyone has acknowledged the possibility that I'm not the only one struggling with the burden of my mistakes. We sit in silence for a while, the crackling of the fire and the sound of the waves filling the quiet between us. I don't know if Henry knows the details of my past, but it doesn't seem to matter. What matters is that, for the first time, I don't feel so alone. As the night comes to an end, I help clean up, saying goodnight to Martha and the others as they begin to drift away. By the time I make my way home, the town is quiet again, the only sound the soft rustle of the wind through the trees. I unlock the door to my apartment and step inside, the familiar comfort of the space wrapping around me. As I sit down in my armchair, I feel a sense of calm that I haven't felt in a long time. Maybe I'm finally starting to build something again, not just with my hands, but with my heart. Maybe this is the beginning of something new. I glance out the window, the moon high in the sky, casting a silver light over the town, and for the first time in years, I feel like I'm home. The next morning, I wake up to the sound of seagulls calling outside my window and the soft hum of the waves in the distance. There's a sense of stillness in the air, a kind of calm that I've come to appreciate in this place. I get out of bed, stretching my arms and heading to the small kitchen to make coffee. As the machine sputters and fills the room with the familiar scent, I find myself thinking about last night's gathering. It felt good to be around people again. Good, but also strange, as if I were learning how to be part of something after so long spent hiding away. The quiet acceptance from everyone there, the way they didn't ask too many questions, they didn't push too hard, gave me a small sense of hope that maybe I could find a way to belong here. I sip my coffee, leaning against the counter as sunlight filters through the window. There's a knock on the door, surprising me. I'm not used to visitors. Setting the mug down, I open the door to find Henry standing there, his hands shoved into the pockets of his jacket, a warm smile on his face. "Good morning," he says. "Thought I'd stop by and see if you were interested in coming with me to check out some wood I'm thinking of buying for the shop." I blink, caught off guard by the invitation. Sure, I say, realizing that I don't have any plans for the day. "I'd like that." Henry nods and waits while I grab my jacket and keys. As we walk through the quiet streets of the town, I feel a little more at ease. Henry's the kind of guy who doesn't demand anything of you, who's content to just enjoy the company without needing to fill the silence with endless conversation. It's a relief, really. I'm not ready for deep conversations yet, but I like the idea of being around people like him, people who understand that healing takes time. We drive out to a lumberyard on the outskirts of town, the smell of freshly cut wood heavy in the air. Henry inspects the piles of lumber, chatting with the workers and pointing out the different types of wood he's interested in. I find myself running my hands over the smooth grain of the boards, thinking about the next project I might take on. It's simple moments like these that make me feel grounded. Working with my hands, being surrounded by the scent of wood and the sound of saws in the distance, it's a world I understand. A world that doesn't judge me for my past. As Henry and I load the wood into the truck, he glances over at me. You ever think about doing this kind of work full-time? Maybe opening your own shop? The question catches me off guard, but I've thought about it. More and more recently, in fact, yeah, I've thought about it, I admit, hoisting a board into the truck bed. I just don't know if I'm ready for something like that yet. Henry nods, thoughtful. Well, if you ever want to give it a go, you know where to find me. I could use a partner, someone who knows their way around a hammer and saw. I smile, surprised by the offer. I'll think about it. We finish loading the truck and drive back toward town, the road winding along the coastline, offering glimpses of the sea through the trees. There's something about this place that feels more like home every day. The quiet, the routine, it's given me a sense of stability I didn't know I needed. When we arrive back in town, Henry drops me off at my apartment, the stack of lumber in the back of the truck creaking as he parks. And let me know if you're interested, he says with a nod. You've got a good head for this kind of work, and I think you do well. I appreciate that, I reply, meaning it. As Henry drives away, I head inside, my mind buzzing with the idea of taking the next step. I've been keeping things simple, living day by day, but maybe it's time to start thinking about more. Or maybe it's time to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop and start building something real again. The thought is both exhilarating and terrifying. I spend the rest of the day working on my current project, letting the rhythm of sanding, cutting, and assembling guide me. The hours pass quickly, and by the time I look up, the light outside has begun to fade, casting long shadows across the room. I take a step back, admiring the small cabinet I've been working on, feeling a sense of accomplishment that I haven't felt in a long time. Later that evening, I sit down with a beer and glance out the window. The town is quiet, the streets empty as the last rays of sunlight disappear over the horizon. I think about Henry's offer, about the possibility of starting a new chapter in my life, and I realize that for the first time in years, I'm not afraid of the future. A week passes and I find myself falling more into the rhythm of this life. The idea of opening my own carpentry shop starts to feel more real, more possible. I've begun sketching out plans, thinking about how I might set up a small workshop and start taking on clients. It's not a grand dream, but it's something that feels tangible, something I can build, just like the pieces of furniture I've been crafting. And one afternoon, while I'm working on a new project, there's another knock at the door. This time it's Martha, holding a plate of cookies wrapped in a tea towel. She smiles warmly when I open the door. I thought you could use a treat, she says, handing me the plate. I made too many, and I figured you'd appreciate some homemade sweets. Thanks, I say, taking the plate. You didn't have to do that. Nonsense, she replies. It's what neighbors do. We chat for a few minutes, and as she turns to leave, she pauses, looking at me with a knowing smile. You seem different lately, happier. I nod, surprised by her observation. I guess I am. Good, she says. It's nice to see someone finding their way again. After she leaves, I sit down with a cookie and look out the window, the words finding their way echoing in my mind. Maybe that's what I've been doing all this time, finding my way back to myself, one small step at a time. Months pass, and before I know it, summer has arrived. The town comes alive with tourists and locals alike, all drawn to the beach and the quiet charm of the place. I've officially partnered with Henry at the hardware store, and together we've started taking on bigger projects, custom furniture, small renovations, even helping out with repairs for some of the local businesses. It's honest work, and it keeps my hands busy and my mind clear. I found a sense of purpose again, something I didn't think was possible. The darkness that once consumed me has started to fade, replaced by something lighter, something hopeful. The memories are still there. Of course, there are nights when I still wake up, heart pounding, the past rushing back to me in vivid detail. But those nights are fewer now, and when they come, I remind myself that I'm not the same person I was back then. I've changed. I've grown. One evening, after a long day of work, I sit on the porch of my apartment, watching the sun set over the horizon. The sky is painted with streaks of orange and pink, the sea shimmering beneath the fading light. As I sit there sipping a cold drink and letting the quiet wash over me, I realize something. I'm happy. It's not a loud, overwhelming kind of happiness. It's a quiet, contented feeling, like the steady rhythm of the waves against the shore. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and that's enough. As the sky darkens and the stars begin to appear, I smile to myself, feeling a sense of peace that I've fought so hard to find. This is my life now, and for the first time I'm okay with that. The summer months stretch out before me, a quiet but fulfilling rhythm settling in. Each day brings a sense of normalcy I once thought impossible. Working with Henry at the hardware store, taking on carpentry projects, and slowly integrating myself into the fabric of this small town has given me a life I can believe in. The shadows of my past are still there, but they no longer control me the way they used to. They've become a distant hum, rather than the loud roar they once were. I've even started making connections I never thought I would. The townspeople are friendly, and though they don't pry, they've accepted me as one of their own. It's strange how that sense of belonging, something I avoided for so long, has come back into my life without me realizing it. One evening, after a long day at the shop, I sit on my porch, the warm summer air wrapping around me like a blanket. There's a knock on the door, a familiar one. It's Martha, as she often is, dropping by with something homemade. This time it's a jar of her famous strawberry jam. I thought you could use some, she says with her usual warm smile. Thanks, Martha, I reply, taking the jar from her. You're spoiling me? She laughs, brushing off the comment as she always does. But tonight, instead of her usual quick departure, she lingers for a moment, looking out at the sunset with me. You've settled in well here, she says softly. It's been nice seeing you come out of your shell. I nod, feeling the truth of her words. Yeah, it's been good for me. This place. It's different. Quiet, but in a good way. Martha glances at me, her expression thoughtful. You know, we all carry things from our past. Some folks might think they're alone in that, but they're not. This town. We all have our stories, our regrets. Her words hang in the air, and for a moment, I wonder how much she suspects or knows about my past. But as usual, she doesn't pry. Instead, she just gives me a kind smile and heads back down the porch steps, leaving me to my thoughts. I sit there for a long time, staring out at the horizon, her words echoing in my mind. We all have our stories, our regrets. It's true. And while I once thought my story was too dark, too broken to ever find peace, I realize now that it's not. I'm not the only one who's struggled, and I'm not the only one who's trying to rebuild. As summer turns into fall, the town shifts with the seasons. The tourists leave, and the locals settle into their routines. The air grows cooler, and the once bustling streets become quieter. I've come to love this time of year, the change in the air, the way everything feels more introspective. It's a time for slowing down, for reflection, and for me, it's a time to look back on how far I've come. One afternoon, while I'm working at the shop, Henry walks in with a grin on his face. He's been busy lately, taking on more clients than usual, and I can tell he's in high spirits. We've got ourselves a big project, he announces. A family down the coast wants us to build custom cabinets for their new vacation home. It's a big order, but I thought you might want to take the lead on this one. I'm caught off guard by the offer. Henry's been mentoring me for months now, but this feels like a step up, like he's trusting me with something bigger than what I've handled before. You sure, I ask, wiping the dust from my hands? He nods. You've got the skills, and I've seen the way you handle the work. Besides, I think it's time you start taking on more of these jobs. You're ready. His words mean more to me than I let on. I've spent so long doubting myself, doubting my ability to rebuild, that hearing this kind of validation feels like a weight lifting from my shoulders. All right, I say, trying to hide the nervous excitement in my voice. I'll do it. The next few weeks are a whirlwind of work. I dive headfirst into the project, designing the cabinets, sourcing the right wood, and working long hours in the shop. There's something deeply satisfying about the process, about creating something beautiful with my hands. It's a reminder that I'm capable of building, not just destroying. As I work, I start to realize that this life I've been building isn't just about escaping the past. It's about creating a future, one that isn't defined by my mistakes or by the guilt that once consumed me. It's about finding purpose in the present, in the work I do and the relationships I'm slowly nurturing. By the time the cabinets are finished and installed, fall has fully arrived. The trees along the coast are a riot of colored deep reds, oranges, and yellows, and the air has that crisp, clean quality that comes with the changing seasons. The day we finish the installation, I stand back and look at the work I've done. The cabinets gleam in the soft afternoon light, and I can't help but feel a deep sense of pride, not just in the work itself, but in the journey that brought me here. It's been a long, hard road, but standing here now, I can see the progress I've made. Henry claps me on the shoulder as we pack up the tools. You did good, Kitty says with a grin. Real good. Thanks, I reply, feeling a warmth spread through me. That evening, I walk along the beach, the sky tinged with the last hues of sunset. The waves crash gently against the shore and the wind tugs at my jacket, but I don't feel the usual chill. Instead, I feel peaceful. It's a word I've rarely associated with myself, but tonight, it fits. As I walk, I think about everything that's happened. About Alice, about the choices I made, about the life I left behind. And for the first time, I feel like I can think about those things without the weight of regret crushing me. They're part of me, yes, but they don't define me anymore. I've started to forgive myself little by little, and in that forgiveness, I've found a way to move forward. The past will always be there, a shadow on the edges of my life, but it doesn't own me anymore. I stop at the edge of the water, watching as the waves lap at my feet. The ocean stretches out before me, vast and endless, and for the first time in a long time, I feel ready to embrace the future, whatever it may bring. I turn back toward the town, the lights twinkling in the distance, and I smile. This place, this life I've been building, it's mine now, and I'm ready to live it. The transition from fall into winter in the small coastal town is subtle but distinct. The air grows crisper, the sky a pale blue most days, and the once bustling beach becomes quiet, save for the occasional walker bundled up against the wind. Life has settled into a rhythm that feels solid, dependable. For the first time in what feels like forever, I find myself looking forward to the day ahead, rather than dreading it. The project Henry and I completed was a success, and it's opened up more opportunities. Word of mouth has spread, and we've started getting more custom orders, not just from locals, but from people further up and down the coast. It's satisfying to see the business growing, knowing that I've had a hand in it, that I'm becoming a part of something bigger than myself. One cold December morning, I'm in the workshop finishing up a piece of custom bookshelf for a family in town when Henry walks in, rubbing his hands together against the chill. I got a letter for you, he says, handing over an envelope. It was dropped off at the store earlier. I wipe the sawdust from my hands and take the envelope, my name scrawled on the front in handwriting I don't recognize. There's no return address, just a simple postmark from a nearby city. Any idea who it's from, Henry asks, watching me curiously. I shake my head. No clue. He shrugs, leaving me to it as he heads back out to the store. I sit down at the workbench, turning the envelope over in my hands. It's strange receiving something so personal. Most of my mail is bills or advertisements. My mind races with possibilities, but I try not to jump to conclusions. Finally, I tear it open, pulling out a single sheet of paper. The handwriting is neat, deliberate. I read the first few lines and feel my heart skip a beat. It's from Alice. I haven't heard from her in months, not since she walked out of my apartment that final time. I'd assumed she had moved on, built a life for herself somewhere far from here, just as I had. But as I read her words, I realized that she's been carrying the same weight I have, only she's been carrying it in silence alone. The letter isn't long, but it's heartfelt. She writes about her journey, about how she's been trying to find peace, to rebuild her life, just as I have. She talks about therapy, about confronting the choices she made, the betrayal, and how hard it's been to live with the guilt. But what strikes me the most is her tone. It's one of acceptance, of a woman who has come to terms with what's happened and is ready to move forward. There's a part of the letter that stands out. I've spent so long running from the past, from what we did, and from the way it all fell apart. But I've realized something. We're not defined by that one moment, that one series of mistakes. We're more than that, and we both deserve a chance to heal. I don't know if we'll ever see each other again, but I wanted you to know that I'm okay. And I hope, wherever you are, that you're finding your way too. I sit there for a long time after finishing the letter, the words sinking in. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear from her until now. In some strange way, knowing that she's on a similar path, that she's finding her way to peace, brings me a sense of closure I didn't know I was missing. I fold the letter carefully, tucking it back into the envelope. There's no request for a response, no address to write back to. It's clear that this was a final chapter for her, a way to put the past to rest. And I feel the same. For the rest of the day, as I work, Alice's words linger in the back of my mind. There's something freeing about knowing that she's okay, that she's forgiven herself and me, in a way. It's as if the final weight of our shared history has been lifted, allowing me to move forward without the burden of what could have been. The winter months come and go in a blur of quiet work and cold nights. The town slows down even more, the streets often empty, and the beach nearly deserted. I find a kind of contentment in the stillness and the routine of each day. The business is doing well, Henry and I have grown closer, and I've started to make more connections in town, people who have welcomed me into their lives without question. But as spring approaches, I begin to feel a shift. Something inside me is stirring, a restlessness that I haven't felt in a long time. It's not the same anxiety or guilt that used to haunt me, but rather a sense that maybe after all this time I'm ready to open myself up to more, to something beyond just surviving. One day, working on a project at the shop, Martha stops by, her usual smile lighting up her face. She's become a constant presence in my life, always bringing food, sharing stories, and reminding me that I'm part of this community. Spring festival's coming up, she says as she leans against the doorframe. You should come. It'll be fun music, food, all the usual festivities. I pause, wiping my hands on a rag. The festival is one of the biggest events in town, something everyone looks forward to after the long, quiet winter. I've always kept a low profile at these kinds of things, preferring the background to the spotlight. But this time, something feels different. I think I will, I reply, surprising even myself. Martha's eyes widen slightly. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'll see you there then. She leaves, and I can't help but feel a small smile tug at the corners of my mouth. Maybe it's time to step out of the shadows a little more, to let myself be part of something bigger than the small world I've built around me. The day of the festival arrives, and the town is buzzing with energy. Stalls line the streets, selling everything from homemade crafts to food, and a small stage has been set up for live music. The air is warm, the scent of freshly baked goods wafting through the streets, and laughter fills the air. It's the kind of day that feels like the world is full of possibility. As I walk through the festival, I see familiar faces: Martha at her stall, selling jars of her famous jams, Henry talking to a group of locals by the stage. Everyone is in high spirits, and for once, I don't feel like an outsider. I feel like I belong here, like this is my home. I spend the afternoon wandering from stall to stall, chatting with people I've come to know over the months. There's a sense of connection, of community that wraps around me, and I find myself feeling lighter, more at peace with where I am in life. Later, as the sun begins to set, I find myself standing near the edge of the crowd, watching the town come alive under the soft glow of string lights. The music plays, people dance, and the sound of laughter fills the night air. It's a simple, beautiful moment, and I let myself be fully present in it. And as I stand there, something shifts inside me. It's not a grand revelation, but rather a quiet acceptance. I'm no longer the man who boarded that ship all those months ago. I've changed. I've grown. And while the past will always be a part of me, it no longer defines me. I'm not trapped by it anymore. I'm free. The night deepens, and as I walk back toward my apartment, I glance up at the stars twinkling in the sky. There's a quiet joy in my heart, a sense of peace I never thought I'd find again. This town, these people, they've given me a second chance, a chance to rebuild not just my life, but myself. And for the first time in a long time, I feel whole. The stars above shimmer against the dark sky, casting a quiet serenity over the town as I walk back home from the spring festival. There's a fullness in the air, not just from the sounds of laughter and music still echoing behind me, but from something deeper. It's the kind of fullness that comes from realizing you're not just surviving anymore, you're living. I feel that now more than I ever have since arriving in this town. When I reach my apartment, I pause at the door, glancing back toward the glow of the festival still humming in the distance. For so long I kept myself isolated, afraid of facing what I'd done, afraid of facing people. But now, standing here, I realize I'm no longer running. I'm no longer the man who hides in the shadows of his own mistakes. I step inside, shutting the door behind me. and the silence of the apartment greets me. It's a comfortable silence, not the oppressive kind that used to weigh on me. I sit down in my armchair by the window, the same one where I've spent countless nights thinking about my past. But tonight, the view out the window, the soft glow of the streetlights, the quiet town bathed in moonlight feels different. It feels like the start of something. The next few weeks bring a steady flow of work and community. Henry and I are busy with new projects, and I'm starting to take on more responsibility at the shop. The trust he's placed in me continues to grow, and with each passing day I find myself more invested in the life I'm building here. The work keeps me grounded, but it's the people who have really started to make this place feel like home. One afternoon, as I'm finishing up a custom piece for a client, Henry walks in with a grin on his face. He leans against the workbench, watching me as I sand down the edges of the wood. "You've come a long way, he says, nodding at the bookshelf I'm working on. "I can't tell you how glad I am that you ended up here. The shop wouldn't be the same without you." I smile, feeling a warmth in my chest that's hard to describe. "Thanks, Henry the First couldn't have done it without you." He waves off the compliment, but there's pride in his eyes. "You did the work. I just gave you the tools." After he leaves, I think about what he said. It's true, this place, this life I've built, is the result of a lot of hard work. But it's also a testament to the fact that we don't have to do everything alone. People like Henry, Martha, and even Alice in her own way have been part of my journey. And as much as I resisted it, I realize now that letting people in is what helped me heal. Summer arrives again, bringing with it the warmth of long days and cool evenings. The town is alive with tourists and locals alike, and the energy of the season fills the air. I find myself falling into the rhythm of it all, working during the day, spending time with the people I've come to care about in the evenings, and finally allowing myself to enjoy the life I've built here. One evening, Martha invites me to dinner at her house. It's a small gathering, just a few people from town, but it feels significant. I've never been one for big social events, but sitting around the table sharing a meal with people who've become my friends, I realize how far I've come. As the evening winds down, Martha pulls me aside as the others chat and laugh in the living room. "You seem different," she says, her eyes twinkling with that same warmth that always makes me feel at ease. "Lighter, somehow." I nod, feeling the truth of her words. "Yeah, I guess I am." She smiles, patting my arm. "It's good to see. You deserve it." "You..." Her words stick with me long after I leave her house that night. Deserve. For so long I believed I didn't deserve anything good. I was weighed down by guilt, by the belief that I was beyond redemption. But now, standing here in the summer night air, I realize that maybe I do deserve this. This life, this peace, it's something I've worked for, and I'm ready to accept it. As the months pass, the sense of peace I've found only grows. The work at the shop continues to thrive, and Henry and I have taken on more clients than ever before. We've started talking about expanding the business, maybe even opening a second location in the next town over. It's a big step, but it's one that feels right. My relationships with the people in town deepen as well. I'm no longer just the quiet guy who keeps to himself. I've become part of the community, someone who contributes, who's there when needed, and who's found a place among the people here. It's a feeling I didn't know I was capable of, and it fills me with a quiet pride. One day, as I'm walking through the market, I run into Henry, who's chatting with a few locals. He calls me over, introducing me to a couple who've just moved into town. "This is the guy I've been telling you about," Henry says with a grin. "He's the one who does all the real work at the shop." I shake their hands, smiling at the compliment. It's a small moment, but one that makes me realize just how much I've become a part of this place. I'm no longer the outsider, I'm someone who belongs. By the time the next spring rolls around, life has settled into a rhythm that feels not just comfortable but fulfilling. The shop is doing well, and Henry and I are moving forward with our plans to expand. The community has embraced me in ways I never thought possible, and I've come to see this town as my home. There are still moments when the past creeps in, memories of Alice, of the choices I made, of the darkness that once consumed me. But those moments are fleeting now, no longer controlling me the way they once did. I've learned to live with my past, to accept it as part of who I am, but not as something that defines me. One evening, as I sit on my porch, watching the sunset over the town, I think back to the letter Alice sent. Her words still resonate with me, but now they feel like a distant echo, something from a different life. I hope, wherever she is, that she's found the same peace I have, and if we ever cross paths again, I know I'll be able to face her without the weight of guilt holding me down. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I feel a sense of contentment settle over me. This life I've built, this place I've found, it's more than I ever thought I'd have, and I'm grateful for it. For the first time in a long time, I'm not waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm not looking over my shoulder, wondering when the past will catch up with me. I'm living in the present, and for the first time I'm truly free. And that's enough. The story you've provided follows the journey of a man who begins in a deeply fractured emotional state, consumed by guilt and anger over the betrayal of his wife, Alice, and her lover. Early on, he discovers Alice's affair and carefully plans a confrontation while they're on a cruise. The story intensifies when the man, in a cold fury, confronts Alice and her lover on the ship. Fueled by rage, he ultimately pushes the lover into the ocean, committing an act of murder and leaving Alice devastated. In the aftermath, both the protagonist and Alice try to move on, but the emotional toll of their actions leaves them fractured. Alice initially attempts to confess to the authorities but is dismissed. Meanwhile, the protagonist attempts to rebuild his life in a small coastal town, hiding from his past while slowly integrating into the local community. He finds solace in carpentry and in forming new connections, particularly with an older man, Henry, and a local woman, Martha. The protagonist gradually confronts the darkness inside him, recognizing that while the past will always be part of him, he can live with it and move forward. Months after their separation, Alice sends a letter to the protagonist detailing her own journey toward peace and forgiveness. Her letter provides him with a sense of closure, allowing him to finally let go of the anger and guilt that once consumed him. By the end of the story, the protagonist has fully embraced his new life in the small town. He becomes part of the community, successfully expanding his carpentry business with Henry, and feels content with the quiet, fulfilling life he's built. He no longer feels haunted by his past, though he acknowledges that the memories will always be there. He accepts that both he and Alice are on separate paths, each healing in their own way, and he finally feels free from the weight of his past actions. Ultimately, the story is one of redemption, self-forgiveness, and personal growth. It shows how the protagonist, once driven by revenge and consumed by his own pain, finds peace by embracing his new life and allowing himself to let go of the past.